I'm going to start over here. Andrew, do a quick intro.
Thanks for having us up here for the panel. So Andrew Bellinghausen, work at Burns McDonnell. Been at Burns & Mac for 14 years now. Started in the telecom space, moved over to our core innovation space about 5 years ago. And then for the last 2 years, I've been supporting our electric distribution group from an innovation standpoint. So I work with all the clients across all the offices and all the countries that we work in, from anything technology related, so AUD kind of fits squarely into that, and then any other innovation, digital transformation type initiatives that we have both internally and externally with our clients.
All right, my name's Tom Copeland. I'm a senior manager for our design organization at Pacific Gas and Electric. I've been with PG&E going on my 29th year now. Spent time in both distribution, transmission, overhead, and underground designs. I tell you, one of the biggest things was 4 years ago when we had all the fires going on and things like that, and then Patty Poppy, our president, stood up and said, "We're going to underground 10,000 miles." That was a big eye-opener to us, and how are we going to do that? So led us here to SBS and the AUD, which has been a real help since we went live last year. So.
Hello, my name is Scott Hubble. I work for Salt River Project. I've been there 35 years. Started my career as a mapper, manual mapper, ink on mylar and pencil on paper. Worked on various projects throughout my career, implementing our homegrown version of GIS. It was called DFIS at the time. Then worked on our small world our small world implementation, and various projects throughout my career. My current title is Business Systems Analyst, which is basically, doesn't mean a whole lot to a lot of people, but I like to think of myself as kind of the guy that gets things done in distribution design. And I've had my head in that space for the last 35 years, just trying to improve the lives of the design staff around me and make things a little better tomorrow than they are today.
Oh, I'm Keaton Kohler. I'm from Lincoln Electric System. I've been with them for about 12 years now, distribution engineer. Mainly do large-scale overhead and underground conversions, just some of our larger scheduled projects. So really enjoy that work, but in the last few years just been mainly focusing on the integration of AUD at LES, and kind of trying to juggle both jobs. It's been a little tough, but it's been working out pretty good. So.
Yep. You can hold on to it. We'll pass it around here. So the first topic we're going to go into is around workforce and knowledge transfer. So I'm going to let you guys pick who wants to go first on this, but with aging workforce and institutional knowledge that's leaving the utilities and leaving engineering firms, how are you addressing that loss of knowledge? I'll start there if somebody wants to grab that one, and then I'm going to ask a question about automation. Anybody get a strong opinion? Okay, go.
I could go. So actually, when I started at LES, there was a large number of employees that were kind of reaching retirement age. My coworker and I, Michael, we kind of came in right on the edge of that with the existing employees. So we were able to kind of learn from them, learn why they implemented a lot of the things that we do at LES. So at least we were able to kind of take some of that in. And I guess kind of relating that to AUD, we're trying to kind of use the automation to kind of bring some of that knowledge in. So we can teach people that passed down knowledge, but if we implement it in AUD to kind of make those selections that we know are standard, that could kind of live on.
I'll just add on to that. If you can utilize those individuals that are getting ready to retire as part of your SME crew, that will go a long way to transferring that tribal knowledge and also kind of solidifying the support. Because a lot of times when you're talking about innovation, people are apprehensive to change, and if they see somebody that has been around the block, so to speak, embracing that change, it goes a long way to kind of selling that. So I would encourage that kind of activity. And then again, I will second utilizing AUD as a de facto standards tool. One thing that we noticed at SRP is prior to rolling out AUD, every individual designer had their cubicles wallpapered with printouts of standards books and handwritten notes on, hey, remember to do this when this happens. And what are the chances that that is up to date? And what are the chances that all 100 designers have the exact same note on the exact same page? So if you can, try to take opportunities to take those standards and the tribal knowledge and basically code it into your application, thereby capturing it forever.
And just to echo on that key part is, I think we went through, over the last couple of years, we hired over 200 designers. So taking that tribal knowledge and teaming them with the younger generation, because that younger generation has that technology drive, where a lot of our tenured people, they like the old way it's done and things like that. So partnering those to make sure that the new technology is incorporating that technology. One of the key drivers we have is we had 13 distribution design centers throughout our territory. You go to each of those design centers, they did it differently. So about 3 years ago, Gary's not here, but Gary had a great idea, and we ended up building a design template and moving all of our teams. Now, if you look at our large underground and overhead project, they're designed on the same template to the same style. You couldn't tell the difference between if a contractor did it or an internal team did it and what office. So that really helped, because then it drove consistency. It helped with how we train our folks and all of those parts. So that was a big driver, was getting our teams all aligned with the same design product.
Yeah, so at Burns Mac, when I started in 2011, we were about 3,000 people across the entire organization. Now we're not quite 15,000 people. So when I started, we were kind of on this trajectory where we were growing really, really fast, and we were growing really, really young. So when I started, there was a big effort around mentorship programs within our organization, to not necessarily to capture the outgoing knowledge, but just we had so many people coming in that had no knowledge that needed to ramp up very quickly. And so that mentorship program has really paid off over the last, I would say probably the last 5 years, where we really started to see kind of a trail off of, workforce leaving. So that's been really good. One thing that, and I would echo everything that these guys just said, so I'm not going to build on top of that, but I will take a little bit of an interesting twist here, just because this is an initiative that I've been working on recently. A lot of people have talked about AI today, which I feel like is something you can't have a conference about in 2025 and not talk about. So think about not necessarily taking that tribal knowledge and just training the next generation of engineers, but training the large language models that drive all of the AI tools we talked about, how cool that would be to have these tools to do it. It's the folks that are leaving the workforce that have that tribal knowledge, that one-off experience, that those large language models are going to rely on in order to get the right answer, not just a answer. So we put a very concerted effort around putting some tools and stuff in place to document as much as we can of not just how it's done, but why it was done that way, to help train those models when we're thinking about what tools we want to build on top of some of these AI platforms.
Good. I'm going to kind of take some of the themes that you talked about here. There was also conversation in one of the presentations around the expertise during the project. So curious to hear from you on how you all pulled in the people, or how you leverage the projects to try to build, and probably more relevant for people that are now going through some of the projects, but how did you bring those subject matter experts in, and what lessons did you learn? What advice would you give to somebody else that's going through some type of situation like that?
So I spent a little bit of time interviewing probably 50% of our design staff and asking them what they needed a design tool to do, what were their obstacles on a daily basis, and came up with a theme. And then as part of those interviews, I was curious to find out which of those design staff members were actually interested in some level of innovation. Oftentimes people think like there's got to be a better way to do it, but they don't want to take the time to find out what that better way is. And so in our initial efforts to get this project underway, I found somebody that absolutely hated AutoCAD and loved MicroStation. And I found somebody that loved AutoCAD and hated MicroStation because we were formerly a MicroStation shop. And then I found a long-time experienced designer in the middle that really didn't care about one way or the other. They just wanted to do their job better. So I guess I would encourage you to find voices on all throughout the spectrum, because oftentimes that's the only way to get to the truth and find a better way to do things.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a lot what we did is we had some of our newer estimators were like, why am I doing all these tasks manually? And then, some of the folks that, understood the tools, understood the why behind, and then, that was the challenge, is to bring those experienced folks to make sure that these items that we are automating now, that they incorporate the proper automation, because stuff they used to do by hand, they really wanted to make sure that it was doing it correctly. So having those folks in there that had that knowledge to look at the program and go, okay, yeah, it's calculating it right, or questioning it. And we had a very open door for anybody that was interested in seeing how it's working. We would have presentations. We would have we did not close the door. If anybody wanted to see how it's working, come on in, join us. We would share with them. We sent out monthly communications. It was really keeping everybody informed throughout the rollout was key. And now I'll tell you, this rollout's probably been one, out of all my years, probably one of the easier ones. We did a very slow roll where we slowly brought people in. And now we have people asking, hey, I want to get in. When can I get into the training? When can I get it? So it's really, people are encouraged on what they're seeing. So because they've been involved throughout the whole process.
So in the Fortis Alberta presentation, there was a topic around adoption, and I think both of you two just kind of hit on that. So if that was one of the bigger themes, I think that people were concerned about around rolling AUD out. So my suggestion, this isn't a question, just a suggestion, would be come talk to these two if you have some interest in learning what they were doing around the adoption. I'm going to pivot a little bit, so talk a little bit about capital projects, larger projects that are being done. Obviously, huge demand, data centers, we talked about AI, data centers are huge, EVs, distributed resources, extreme weather that's happening, reliability, grid modernization, those are all huge demands that are being put onto utilities. How are your organizations prioritizing that type of work, and how do you see that affecting the things that you're doing day to day?
Well, this is huge. Our utility is seeing something that we've never seen in the last 40 years. Data centers are coming in, AI is driving it. PG&E, we used to be the one that stood back and waited for the customer to come to us. Well, that customer is going to go wherever they can get the service they want. So PG&E has taken the initiative. We are going after those customers, going to the Googles. You got the Apples, you got all those building these data centers, and we're going after them and trying to engage them early and help encourage and understand their process of how can we serve them to get their load going and understand their ultimate load, and maybe even encourage where they're putting their facilities so we're not having to build a huge backbone to get to them. But if you go over here, we already have facilities. So really engaging those large load customers as early as possible now, which is a lot different than what PG&E has done in the past, where we kind of waited for them to come to us with an application. We're really engaging them to try to get ahead of it so we can be that partner with them to accomplish what we need.
So I'll make a little bit of a shameless plug here. So I love that you mentioned like being proactive and like going after these customers. That's something we're really trying to drive with all of our utility clients, like at Burns and Mac. Is you mentioned data centers, you mentioned transportation electrification, all of these things that are impacting the grid, distributed energy. We work very closely internally at Burns McDonnell with all of those groups that we have within utility investment planning, our folks that are working with the Googles and the Microsofts and the Amazons of the world and all of them. So I would encourage you all, like, leverage, the relationships you have, like, selfishly with Burns and Mac, that we can help be proactive. And that is absolutely what we have seen is the best. And even if you're going to go it alone, be proactive. Reach out to those customers and try and drive the conversation. Don't sit back, because that is absolutely where things start to fall apart.
Okay. One of the themes that I remember Al brought up at the beginning of his presentation was affordability. These large projects, they're obviously complex and costly, but consumers are looking for ways to keep their costs down. We went through 3 years of unprecedented inflation, and I think that obviously has put kind of some fear into consumers around cost increases. What are you all doing, or how does that come down to you day to day on your work to ensure that affordability is something that you're pushing through the organization?
I can just talk about what we've been doing a lot of partnership with construction, because we're undergrounding roughly about 400 miles a year in our territory. That can get very, very expensive. So looking at ways that we can do things differently, for example, just things like backfill. We had it where you always had to put sand. Well, now we're using technology. How can we reuse the native backfill? So we have a lot of requirements that drive our costs too. So we're looking at those requirements and with our standards and going, really questioning, why do we have this standard? Is it really needed? Could we do it something differently? We have a continual working relationship with our construction, our standards, our design teams to figure out how can we do something a little different. Just a simple one that we looked at was our large vaults. The holes are on the bottom. Our trench is usually 30 inches deep. Well, to get into the box, I almost have to go 6 feet down to enter the bottom of the box. Why don't we just move a knockout up to, 4 feet? Now I don't have to do shoring. I don't have to do all these things. So just really engaging all of our teams to question the norm. And it's been key in driving a lot of our costs down for that.
Something that we've been doing is kind of focusing more on trying to direct our budget towards trying to reduce outages and outage time. So, we had some, quote unquote beautification projects that we were doing along, major arterial roadways that we've kind of scaled back a little bit to maybe use some of those funds for trying to improve reliability instead of along the main arteries. So, we've been kind of focusing on high impact areas, undergrounding. There's some areas of our system that are heavily treed, so kind of working in those areas to maybe underground a block or two. Those can be difficult and costly, but we're kind of prioritizing some of those, and I guess on top of that is with the supply chain issues that we've ran into the last few years, trying to kind of forecast that and stock up on especially transformers, that sort of thing, to ensure that we can continue providing service.
Okay, so then to kind of add on to that question, the tools that you're using, obviously you all are users of our automation tools. How do you see automation and the tools that you're using influence that affordability? Are you seeing reductions in labor to complete work? Are you able to do more with less? Are you seeing some of those benefits then from the tools?
On our side, definitely the importing of our GIS into our drawings has been a very big help. some of the bases that we used to do could take weeks to put together, that an import can do pretty reliably, much quicker. So that definitely helps on the labor side of drawing. And then on top of that, with the analysis in AUD to determine transformer size and cable size, that sort of thing for services, we're still working to kind of implement that, but I could see that being a big help.
Just one comment on automation. Essentially, what automation allows you to do is eliminate the routine and mundane and allow your resources to focus on more value-add tasks. So that is in and of itself a benefit and a reduction in costs. One thing we really look forward to is introducing integration between AUD and our Small World GIS. As of right now, the mapping folks that are putting our jobs from distribution design into mapping are basically recreating what we've already done. So we take the time to design it in AUD. It's got a model behind it. It's got all the connectivity behind it, everything you could want. And then we send a PDF over to our mapping group, and they recreate the wheel on their own system. And so that is, in some respects, routine and mundane. And so if we can automate that effort and take those 20 some odd resources and have them do more value-add tasks, ultimately that produces dividends to our customers.
So I'm going to take Scott's comment here, and I'm going to reach out to the crowd. Is there anybody in the crowd that's done one of the GIS playback implementations and have seen some value in it and can talk a little bit about the value that they've recognized through that integration? Anyone willing? No? All right. That was a good try. Talk a little bit about like what's coming up in the next couple of years. So again, AI, mobility, as-builting process. That's some things that are happening. So mobility and as-builting, that's kind of a new thing. The AI. How are you seeing that influence the work that you've got coming up, and how do you see yourself taking advantage of it?
So I think Scott hit the nail on the head with the last question of like getting rid of the mundane tasks and letting engineers be engineers and designers be designers, right? Where I think we've seen where we can really leverage this and where I think that it's going to pay dividends in the future is by doing that, you're increasing the quality of the output from the design teams like just exponentially. And that's really kind of comes back to cost. So, we were talking about working with construction earlier. If we can save those little quality issues on the front end and those don't get caught in construction, that saves a ton of time. It saves a ton of money on the back end. And so I think as we look at how we're going to continue to leverage technology over the next couple of years, at least internally at Burns McDonnell, quality has been on kind of the front end of our minds and conversations, especially as we start approaching more EPC style work and we're working closer with the contractors in the field. So I think a focus on quality is really kind of where I see technology being leveraged in the next couple of years.
Yeah, one of the big ones is next couple of years. We have a lot of things going on, but one of the things, we're still crews taking paper out into the field and marking up drawings, scanning them in and things. So we have some big initiatives going to mobile as-built, mobile mapping, which is, it's a lot of culture change, and it's going to take some change, but, going to more of the mobile as-built-in mobile mapping is going to be a big one for our lines of group business, which, like you said, what does that drive? It drives our designs have to be more accurate. So, taking away the mundane tasks that we had a lot of where, we were doing a lot of hand calculations. Now that's gone away. Now we can focus on the quality of the design. So then that quality of that design then can go to construction on their mobile device, and then they can do their mobile as-built. So lot coming over the next year with that transition. So that'll be one of our big ones with technology.
I don't know if anybody else has this issue, but at SRP, historically, there's been a lot of siloing. And I'm doing my very smallest, I'm doing my part, albeit small, to kind of change that culture. Historically, individual groups would say, well, I need what I need and you'll get what I give you. And really, the dynamic is changing a little bit to understand that everybody in the workflow contributes a little bit of additional data to the process. And if we can understand what we produce and who benefits from that production, then we can all help each other and eliminate redundancy if we can understand that who is the ultimate source of this information and not try to replicate multiple sources and basically share data across the workflow makes everybody more productive.
All right, and I'm going to do one more here, and then maybe open it up to some people in the crowd to give some questions here. Ask this group, put them on the spot a little. So, path to digital transformation. So there's been a lot of push in the last couple of years around moving to a digital workflow, digitizing the integrations between applications because of efficiencies that potentially can be gained from some of that, and operational effectiveness. I guess from all of your perspective, what has been the most impactful digital transformation that you've seen occur in the last couple of years within your organization?
Well, most impactful and disruptive, I guess, is another way to say that. ADMS, which we just recently launched, and AUD has been a big disruptor and a great opportunity. Both of those projects have been great opportunities to push the business forward. It's created a lot of additional questions that people didn't think to ask, especially when you think about our current data model in Small World and how it had to be updated to some respects to facilitate all of the tools and attributes in ADMS. We are also looking at having our crews do red line prints in Bluebeam, so getting away from paper products. We recently launched WAM Mobile, so that's a new innovation for us just in the last couple months. Yeah, those are some of the big ones.
Yeah, I think like you had said, AUD. It's nice to be able to kind of bring that together with GIS, with the UDH, and have everything kind of talk to each other. I think we'll eventually expand on that. We are still using paper drawings, work order packets, that sort of thing. We have added a little bit of functionality for our crews in terms of work manager. It's kind of trending that way to get to quote-unquote paperless system. We're not there yet. It'll probably be a little bit, but we're kind of setting the framework to make that possible.
So the next few years are AUD has been, I thought it would be a little bit more of a challenge with the teams, but so far not too bad with the teams, but again, the rollout. I think the biggest one is we're going through a huge transformation over the next 3 to 5 years. We're going to S4HANA, we got Propel, Elevate, we're going to Esri, UDH, UHD, what is it, Jason? So, UA. So the issue is any enhancements we want to do to AUD or some of our other programs, we have to go through a pretty rigorous process to make sure that it is going to work for the future programs, which is good, but it does really, I'll tell you, just the recent rollout we tried to do, it took 6 months just to get through just the approval process. So that is a little hard, but we're trying to work through those challenges because we understand we're going to change in the future, but we want this updated now.
So biggest transformation, right? So there is a ton of different, I think, technical or technology things that could be plugged into this, but I think what's been most impactful in our organization over the last couple of years has been a cultural shift. So I mentioned kind of in my introduction that about 5-6 years ago I moved over to our core innovation team, and then the last couple of years over into an innovation role within our distribution group. We had kind of started a innovation team kind of as like a side hustle around the time that I started, 2011, 2012. And it was a handful of us within our transmission and distribution group, and we just kind of, we did it because we enjoyed finding these little efficiencies and seeing like what value we could bring to the business outside of just, day-to-day project execution. And it was fun, and we had, our little weekly meetings that we did over lunch, usually like not at the office, like somewhere off-site, just to kind of mix it up. And then, we saw some success, I would say, but adoption was really hard because everybody was just head down, focused on cranking out deliverables, getting their job done. And then about 5-6 years ago, our leadership within T&D put a very big emphasis on technology and innovation and said, hey, look, we're going to invest in this. Like, we are going to create roles that are solely focused on getting better as an organization. And so our team kind of got formalized. It started to grow a little bit, and then as adoption started to get more across the organization, we started expanding out into what we call our business lines, so our distribution group, our pipeline group, our overhead transmission group, and started getting really much more ingrained over the last couple of years with them. And then in the beginning of 2024, our CEO announced our first chief innovation officer, who was actually kind of he was our manager when we were just the ragtag side hustle of innovation team at T&D. So I think what's been most impactful by far is the cultural shift that we've seen within our organization of taking the time and the investment to really pour into innovation and technology and think about where we're going to be in the future, how can we help folks get there, and understand that just putting your head down and getting your work done every day, like that's just not the way we operate anymore as an organization. And I do say that understanding, like knowing that not everybody has that luxury, right? So, but we've been very fortunate to have, one, the leadership, and then two, the opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yeah, common theme, right? Unlocking skilled workers to do more, and that's important as you all move forward. I'm gonna pause here on our questions. I hope somebody in the crowd can ask something. Oh yeah, there you go, Danny. I'll repeat it. How about that?
Okay. So Danny Petreka with Locust View. I want to key in on something that both Brad and Scott talked about, and PG&E as well, especially in the context of digitalized booking. Last year I came to Plug for the first time, and I saw engineers and designers talking about the use of AUD with not a lot of discussion around enterprise integrations. I see that different this year, that there is a lot more discussion around and presentations around AUD in the context of integrating with work and asset management, with GIS, with digital asset booking. What's driving that, and is that a real change, or my interpretation? Like, what's driving this more forefront interest in integrating AUD in your processes better than it has been?
So Danny's question was around a lot more discussion on integrations within the enterprise. What's driving that, and is that a reality? Is that a truth, and what's driving it?
I'm going to do my best, Jason. Jason he's the lead. I'll tell you, he's the lead for mobile as-built right now, and so he's the expert. I'll see if I can remember what he's told me a few times. But the driver is just getting data uploaded instantly. And we can push that data, we can get it uploaded versus somebody having to go in and manually. Right now we have mappers still hand drawing, not on paper, but through EDGIS, being able to push that live data in, have live updates, have that information available, because I heard we rolled DMS, around 5 years ago, and, getting all that live so it can get to our switching centers so they know what's installed, what's live, what's there, a lot of those good things, and redundancies was a big one. I hand a piece of paper to a crew marks up a drawing, hands it to a clerk inputs it into SAP, A mapper goes into SAP, pulls up the information and draws on it. So a lot of automation too.
I mean, maybe a question to ask you to tie into what Danny was saying there. What kind of overall reduction might you see if you digitize you made that whole workflow integrated? What kind of reduction could you see in those manual steps? You have a sense for that?
I don't know if we thought about that, Jason. I'll be honest, it's a touchy subject because there's people doing that work now. So we do know we'll see some enhancements, some of the workforce. We definitely, what I see is really getting more accurate data because, when you have people doing it manually and we're all human, something happens. I might forget to click a button or I might forget to do something. So really what I see is really more of a more accurate documentation process.
So, sorry. With regard to the driver, I would say some of it is just momentum and others is exposure. So historically, design has been drawing stuff on paper and then sending it out to the crews. The job gets built and no one ever knows anything else. None the wiser. Now we're building a data model that has data that can be shared, and people are understanding that, okay, design is producing something that I can take advantage of. So just a case in point, this isn't an original thought, but in some respects, asset management benefits because an asset's life cycle, again, in some respects, doesn't begin until there's a need for it. And the first people to understand the need for it is typically the design group. So asset management can definitely benefit. One thing we're looking forward to sharing, just speaking off of some opportunities, is integrating with our work management system for identification of long lead items, right? So a designer is building some project and lo and behold, that particular transformer is on back order and we're not going to get one for 6 months. We can have a conversation with the customer much earlier in the process, or at minimum, we can at least warn the designer, hey, look, I know you're designing this way, but we're currently out of stock, so maybe there's an alternative way you could think about designing it. So possibly avoid that conversation entirely. I think there's just a greater opportunity for data sharing, and as that occurs, more people become interested because they're able to benefit from it.
Yeah, I can kind of build on what Scott mentioned with the asset management. To your question with the integration, I think for us, SAP integration was pretty much forced. That was a need be. But we have also built in some reporting and some details into the connection between AUD and SAP that we can run reports that helps asset management and budgeting and that sort of thing much more than we had before. And then I guess on the GIS side of integration with AUD, again, I don't think it's something that was forced like SAP, but being able to eliminate that having to draw the drawing twice is just insanely beneficial. So I think that was a great choice that we made.
Do you want anything across the?
Just I think one. Yeah. So yeah, I think we work with a ton of different utilities across the country, right? And I think that affordability is a big driver, like reduction in man hours. That's always been a big driver, and it just continues to be. The other one that I see, and I think is kind of an underlying theme to everything these guys just said, and that's speed to get things out the door, right? I think. Whether you're undergrounding 10,000 miles, or you're having a whole bunch of subdivisions built because there's an influx of people moving to your state or your region, getting the built infrastructure completed faster is becoming just an expectation at this point. So I think all the integrations, data at your fingertips is just the most efficient way to get that done.
All right, if there's one more in the crowd, we'll take one more and then we'll jump on to the next one. Anybody else have something else they want to ask? Pat's always good for a question. Agree. Any questions? No? Was there one? Oh, yep.
I was just wondering, you guys have all talked about the digital as-built thing. Are any of you putting any of your pre-construction work into your GIS systems? And if so, how are you doing that?
So the question was around, are you putting pre-construction proposed into your GIS? How are you doing that?
I'll let these guys touch on it because their answers probably will resonate a little better.
Yeah, we currently what we call pre-map our projects, and it's usually a mapper's taking once the design is gotten out, they take the design before it goes into construction, and they pre-map it, but it's through the manual process right now. We haven't got, because we haven't rolled automation, but yeah, that is one step we still need to do too, is we want to continue to pre-map these projects.
Same.
For us, we're using project boundary. So essentially when a designer goes into an area, they set their project boundary. That shows up in our GIS system after the project is approved. So anybody who's either looking in GIS or importing from GIS to AUD, they'll see that, hey, there's somebody else that has done some work in this area. I better check to see, make sure I'm not overlapping work. So I think that can be a benefit as we get more and more. So just a polygon, not the actual asset. Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Keaton, Scott, Tom, Andrew. Appreciate you guys taking the time to come up here. Hopefully you all found this helpful, and we're going to move on to the next presentation here. Thank you.